Hello lads and welcome back to yet another video. Now, if we rewind our minds back to the last video I did, you'll hear me say this. Recently, rumours are beginning to spring out from the ground about Series 11 about, who might be returning and what the monsters are going to be and what's going on. Finally some sort of sustenance to talk about. So, naturally, I'm not going to talk about that. I'm keeping my beak of a nose out of all the rumours to keep myself as spoiler fresh as possible. Yeah, that sort of turned out to be a load of bullshit, didn't we? Because here we are. I have recently heard some rumours that in Series 11, the next series, that the character of Captain Jack Sparrow, Harkness, is coming back to our screens alongside the 13th Doctor, Jodie Whittaker. And within the same week, I've heard John Barrowman and Eve Miles both dispute this fact and say it's false. So why are we even here? Well, it beats me, but I'm just here to talk about the fact that Captain Jack might, probably not, but might, very slim chance, almost impossible, come back in Series 11. And I'm going to think, is this a good idea? And I'm going to go out and say, no. Now let me put this back out there. Let me put it out there. It's like when you think it through, and when I make up every point why Captain Jack shouldn't come back, I think of a sort of counterpoint as to why he should, and these counterpoints make sense. So let me run them through to you in my head. First argument I thought of is that it has been 10 years now. He was last seen in 2008, and it's now 2018. It's been 10 years since Captain Jack's last appearance on Doctor Who. Torchwood's a different matter, but it's his last appearance in Doctor Who, and within the sort of programme of Doctor Who, that's the only sort of TV show that matters. It doesn't matter whether he's been in Torchwood or Big Finish or anything, that's the last appearance he was in. Now, 10 years, that's a sort of long time to bring a character back, especially within the sort of same run, and there has been a lot of change in tone to Doctor Who since then, and I don't know whether the sort of direction that Chris Chibnall is taking it, which is hopefully a new one, if it goes well, it needs to be a new one, and maybe he won't sort of fit that tone, because Captain Jack was very much a sort of rompy, laugh out loud character, and even though that's the sort of tone I want Chris Chibnall to take, I don't know if it'll fit in the same tone, because it's barely going to be a copy of the way that Russell T Davies wrote the series, and bringing Jack into that just didn't fit right with me. And then I thought that back through, and I thought, hang on, everything I just made up there is a load of a load of cock and ball. Is that Cockney rhyming slang? Because I thought, hang on, when you think of it, the space between the invasion, which is when the Brigadier first showed, and Spearhead from Space, which is where the first episode when he became a regular, I mean, that was a sizable chunk of time. I mean, a whole decade had turned from that sort of point, and even though it might not have been a 10-year gap, it definitely wasn't a 10-year gap, but that was the sort of space that they had to fill, and they brought him back, and he was a successful character, and then he kept coming back especially between the Web of Fear and Mordrin Undead, which was the sort of last Third Doctor episode that he appeared in, and the last Third Doctor episode, and the next appearance that he appeared in, which was with the Fifth Doctor. That was a sizable chunk, and people could have worried that the character was forgotten about, but he came and he was successful, and he was the Brigadier that we all knew and loved. And between that space and what's his name, Dragonfire, when he appeared with the Seventh Doctor, that is like a sort of a large chunk, but he still came back and he was still loved. And I'm guessing that would be the same principle that applied to Captain Jack. And even thinking about that, if we're really thinking about time span, then the space between the Hand of Fear, or the Five Doctors if you like, was the last appearance of Sarah Jane Smith. She didn't come back hundreds of years later in School Reunion, and she was obviously gotten much older, and they used that to the show's advantage, and she was still a character that we loved, and that ended up, her appearance in School Reunion ended up getting a spin-off show which was loved by kids. So maybe that argument is just a bit null. But back to Captain Jack, I don't know what it is, but I can't even argue that the writing wouldn't be the same, because the thing that Captain Jack's mostly known for is Torchwood, and Chris Chibnall, as I've mentioned in previous videos, was sort of the face front of Torchwood. He wasn't the showrunner or the head writer, but he did write a majority of the episodes. He did write a lot of series openers and series finale, especially within Series 2, when he really helped take the direction that Jack's character was going. He drove that into a new direction. So he's a sort of master of Jack's writing. If anyone had to be a showrunner and bring Captain Jack back, it wouldn't be Stephen Moffat, it would be Chris Chibnall, because he's really mastered his writing. Chris Chibnall has written more episodes for Captain Jack Harkness than Stephen Moffat, the person who introduced the character, has. It's not even an argument of that. It'd probably be an ideal writer to have Captain Jack under. But then I realised, and this is my main reason, this is the reason which I don't want Captain Jack to return now, is that it's series 11, and this is sort of big time in not only in Doctor Who's tenure but in Doctor Who's history. We're having another 2010 reboot. We're getting a new Doctor, we're getting a new companion, new companions, we're getting, the Doctor's female, and that is the one thing. It's a big change. We're stepping back from the past, and you can truly feel that this series is going to take the show in a new direction. And I'm thinking, at least not now in her introductory series, we don't need an elder character dragging that back, because something that the last couple of series has suffered from is its attachment to nostalgia and its reliance on that. In series 10 alone, we had Mavellians, we had Ice Warriors, we've had Mondasian Cybermen, we've had the Master, we've had John Sims' Master specifically, and that's not even the worst case for it in Stephen Moffat's run, but it has been not held back, but it's been pinned by nostalgia and callbacks. In Series 9 we had the callback to David Tennant, because even though it doesn't feel like a long time ago because we were watching it growing up, it was a long time ago, as I say, 10 years now. And I don't think we need that with Series 11. We need to let the show go on its own routes. Series 12, go for it. I would absolutely adore to have Captain Jack back then, because he is a great character and I do want to see him return. John Barrowman wants him to return, and he'd be great for having... and he'd have great writing under Chris Chibnall. So I'd have no argument for that, but I think the main sort of thing is that everything is new next series and everything's going in a brand new direction, and we need to strive forward and not be step back just for once. We need to give Jodie Whittaker and Chris Chibnall their own breath, their own fresh breath, and they need to breathe life into this very sort of not arguably dilapidating show. Some might argue that Sarah Jane Smith, as I previously mentioned, came back in School Reunion, which was the third episode in Series 2, I think, which was David Tennant's first series, and you could have argued that that was holding the show back by nostalgia. But what you have to remember is that Series 2 was still marking a fresh new dawn for Doctor Who. Series 1 of the reboot was only a year ago, and that had given the the show space to find its feet on its own. And even though it might not have been the best opportunity potentially for David Tennant, it might have held him back, it actually spawned life. But the fact is that the reboot back then, it had found its feet. The only sort of reliance on nostalgia that it had was the Daleks. But even then, they gave them a new breath of life with the Time War and introducing that aspect to it. With this, I don't think that's the same prospect, because at least Series 2, it had the consistency of Rose. We had that sort of foundation of familiarity with Chris Eccleston gone. So audiences didn't really need time to adjust to that, because they had the sort of solid rock of Rose to keep them steady, and they were getting used to this whole new Doctor, and maybe the new Doctor was a sort of way of showing that he is not only the same as Christopher Eccleston, but the same as Tom Baker and all the other Doctors, with the use of Sarah Jane Smith and that sort of recognition of each other and that sort of playback. And it was done in such a way that new viewers didn't have to know who Sarah Jane was in School Reunion for that to work. I could see that working differently with Captain Jack, because he's got so much backstory that you'd need to read up on first, and especially as this would be a sort of coming on point to new viewers, it wouldn't be sort of the best way. You couldn't explain his entire backstory in just like a couple of sentences of explanation. You'd need like sort of explorations that you need to explanation about Torchwood, how Torchwood was founded, why Torchwood was disbanded, how Jack got his immortal life, the fact that he can't die, all these things. I think the way that we'd have to get, or some viewers would have to get used to Jodie Whittaker being the same Doctor that we all know, is through use of Daleks, because it's inevitable they're going to show up, even though as much as I don't really want them to. That would be the sort of foundation. It was the same way that Patrick Troughton was recognised in Power of the Daleks. I think it's that sort of same thing. So just for now, just for this series, I don't think Captain Jack should come back, and it doesn't look like he is with the tweets from John Barrowman and Eve Miles and that. But I think that'd be that. So yeah, what do you think? Do you want Captain Jack to come back sometime soon? He's not next series, but would you like him to? Why would you like him to? Why would you not like him to? Put it in the comments, which I won't read because I don't care. Bibbidi bobbidi boo. The sun's going down now, so I just stop this right at the right time while we still have light. So see you next time. Have fun. Yippee ki yay. Boo boo.